The ports of the lower Mississippi River are a major gateway for the U.S. export economy. As the largest volume port in the U.S., 60% of our nation's grain and other exports ship out of it every year. No other nation has such a competitive advantage of a major river system connecting so much of the country to one port complex. But there is a hidden bottleneck holding up this competitive advantage, and that's the sediment underneath the ports. At a depth of just 45 feet, it's keeping us from loading the larger size ships that leading import countries are currently accepting. Meanwhile, 4,000 miles south, a sizable export competitor, Brazil, is already loading ships that size in its port of Santos. Thanks to dredging efforts there, they are satisfying customers worldwide, and we're losing that business to them. Missed opportunities for exporting commodities, food, and other goods.
We're coming in at number 2 or number 3 instead of number 1. Our goal is always to be number 1. I mean, we have the most miles of navigable waterway. We have the largest ag area in the world, both connected. And if we don't maximize those benefits, we lose face. Those are the things we look at. We lose the ability to maximize our potential. And as a world leader, we're talking about American jobs. We're talking about stimulating the economy. Much of our economic success of a nation depends on what happens on that river.
No one is more aware of the situation than Paul Aucoin, the executive director of the Port of South Louisiana, urgently leading the effort to dredge the lower Mississippi an extra 5 feet to a depth of 50 feet.
And it's important for us as a port to be competitive. When there's a restriction, when there is a depth restriction at the mouth of the river, it affects the cost of transporting that cargo. It makes it higher, it makes us less competitive. And we want to be competitive, and that's what this will do. It'll maintain our competitiveness in the whole world, and that's important. It's a United States of America issue, not a Louisiana issue, and we need to get that river down to 50 feet and keep it there.
Why is dredging the lower Mississippi so vital to our export economy? The difference of 45 feet to 50 feet doesn't sound like much, but it is. At 45 feet, standard Panamax vessels are loaded to 66,000 metric tons, 70,000 metric tons max. Parts of the lower Mississippi have been dredged to 47 feet. But even then, the maximum loads for larger Panamax vessels are 77,000 metric tons. But that's not enough either. Today's export markets want larger volumes in excess of 80,000 metric tons. With 9 top competitors already using these 80,000 metric ton ships, the U.S. is already behind. These load capacity restrictions are already something ship pilot Captain Michael Miller experiences firsthand.
Every time that we have to, and as pilots we hate to do it, when we have to reduce loading drafts from 45, say to like last year, 41 feet, that's that 4 feet of cargo. That could be $4 million to somebody. That's a lot of money. You know, and they may say, hey, I can't make my margins. I'm not going to come to this port if you can't maintain your channel properly. So it's very vital. It's very key that this be done.
The Port of Santos Canal in Brazil, arguably the biggest competitor to U.S. grain and other exports in the West, is already at a depth of 49.2 feet and adding new terminals on both sides. It's already loading 80,000 metric ton ships. Brazilian exports have increased from 1.6 million metric tons in 2002 to 15.4 million in 2015, with the potential of exceeding 60 million metric tons per year. Brazil even has plans to dredge the Port of Santos an additional 6 feet to 55.8 feet total.
Eventually, these big conglomerates, they'll go put their infrastructure someplace else over time. I would think that would be natural. I mean, we've seen that. We've seen a lot of equipment moved. You know, it's old equipment here, barges, tugs, things of that nature, go down to Brazil and Argentina, absolutely. So, yeah, we got to stay on top of this. And I think this 50 foot's going to help us be very competitive price-wise with those countries.
Loads demanded by exporters continue to grow larger. Since the Panama Canal expansion, it can now handle vessels loaded to 99,000 metric tons. Asia and other global buyers want larger volumes and the resulting lower freight rate. 6 of the 10 largest ports in the world are in China and have drafts that exceed 50 feet, accommodating vessels in excess of 80,000 metric tons. In total, 9 countries have the capability to harbor vessels carrying nearly 80,000 metric tons. The numbers leave the lower Mississippi River ports woefully inadequate to today's export market demands. While a major investment, Paul Aucoin stresses dredging is a must for the companies that rely on the ports and the Mississippi River waterway system to stay competitive here and abroad.
We're the largest foreign trade zone in the United States as well. I don't know if you're aware of that fact. And, that's going to be important to our foreign trade zone exports and imports. And that foreign trade zone received $51 billion in cargo. For our foreign trade zone. So we're talking about a lot of trade, a lot of dollars. And so it puts it in perspective, puts everything, the cost of dredging in perspective.
In its 2018 report recommending congressional approval, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers concluded that the deepening project would result in benefits averaging $127.5 million a year to the nation's economy. A study by Informa Economics found that a 50-foot depth would allow the ability to load a large Cape-size ship while saving upward of $20 per metric ton and loading greater volumes on one ship. The Mississippi River Basin accounts for over $750 billion of the nation's economy and more than 2.4 million jobs. The ports alone handle more than 500 million tons of cargo a year. In Louisiana alone, the American towboat and barge industry supports over 50,000 jobs and generates over $2.5 billion in GDP annually. When completed, the project is expected to create 17,000 jobs due to the increase in production and $850 million in increased income for American workers. According to Sean Duffy, it's an investment that will more than pay for itself.
The Corps and Louisiana Department of Transportation had to do a general reevaluation report. That report looked at the economics of increased trade, increased draft, the ability to ship deeper cargoes, and said there's a benefit-cost ratio of 7.2. So for every dollar invested, there's a return of $7.20 on that investment. This project will pay for itself in 2 years. So that's huge.
According to Mark Seib, soybean farmer and leader on the United Soybean Board, a core investor in the design, planning, and analysis of dredging the lower Mississippi, agriculture would be one of the biggest beneficiaries of the project, adding that the river carries 60% of U.S. grains bound for international markets.
For the American farmer, being able to have this dredging project completed should bring basis to their soybean price. It should also bring a better price, because then we're getting more going out the door through the exports and allowing for more of our soybeans to be utilized. And so in return, we should receive a lot better price for our soybeans. And for each and every one of the American soybean farmers, it could add maybe 5-10 cents even for their basis and everything. So it's a huge plus all the way down the channel.
And there are environmental benefits to the dredging project as well. Sediment dredged from the lower river will be used to build over 2 square miles of new wetlands in the federal Delta National Wildlife Refuge and the state's Pass Louder Wildlife Management Area to support wildlife habitat. This is a rare opportunity of agreement by so many on one shared goal. For Paul Aucoin and the industries that rely on the lower Mississippi for commerce, the funding and work will help reestablish our export advantage for years to come.
It's a win-win-win for everybody. There's nobody that's going to lose. Even the cost of dredging will be repaid 20-fold. I mean, when you get the benefits back, it'll be 20-fold repayment. It's just a win-win for everybody, the state, the shippers, the vessels, the pilots, the grain farmers in the Midwest, who, as you well know, by the way, realize the importance of this whole project by contributing to it.